What if everything you know about civilization is only half the story? When we hear the word civilization, what comes to mind? Is it grand cities with towering monuments? Powerful kings adorned in gold? Maybe it's the birth of writing, or incredible feats of engineering like the pyramids. We often picture places like ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, or the Indus Valley as the cradles of civilization, where humanity suddenly leaped forward. But what if I told you that story is incomplete? What if the real foundation of civilization isn't built on stone and ambition, but on something much more fundamental? Fear, hunger, and a desperate need for certainty. For the vast majority of human history, we were nomads. Our ancestors moved with the seasons, following herds of animals, searching for edible plants. Survival was the only goal, day in and day out. Imagine a life with no permanent home, no walls to protect you from the elements or predators. A life where your next meal was never guaranteed. There were no borders, no governments, no sense of belonging to a place. Life was a constant, exhausting struggle against the unpredictability of nature. It was fragile, dangerous, and short. This was the human experience for hundreds of thousands of years. Just think about that. Our entire recorded history is just a tiny fraction of the time we've been on this planet. Then, around 12,000 years ago, something radical happened. A shift so profound it would change the course of our species forever. Humans began to settle down in different parts of the world. Almost simultaneously, people started planting seeds in the ground. They learned to cultivate crops like wheat, rice, and corn. They built shelters that weren't just temporary camps, but structures meant to last for generations. For the first time, people stayed in one place long enough to truly call it home. And with that single decision, the decision to stop wandering, everything changed. This is the agricultural revolution, and it's the moment the seeds of civilization were truly sown. A stable food supply meant populations could grow. People no longer had to spend every waking moment hunting or gathering. This surplus of food, and more importantly, time, allowed for new possibilities. Specialization began to emerge. Someone could become a potter, a weaver, a builder, or a priest. New technologies were invented to make farming more efficient and life more comfortable. Villages grew into towns, and towns grew into the first cities. It seems like a straightforward story of progress, doesn't it? A simple, linear path from hardship to prosperity. But the real story is much darker, more complex, and far more interesting. The birth of civilization wasn't just about cooperation. It was also about control. Storing surplus grain required protection. Who would guard it? Who would distribute it? Suddenly, a new concept emerged. Power. A small group of people, whether through strength, charisma, or claims of divine authority, took charge. This created social For the first time in human history, you had rulers and the ruled, the rich and the poor, the landowners and the landless. Civilization brought us laws and order, but it also brought us inequality and oppression. The walls built to protect cities from outsiders also served to control the people within them. Farming provided security from starvation, but it also tethered people to the land, forcing them into a life of hard, repetitive labor their nomadic ancestors never knew. The freedom of the open plains was traded for the security of the walled city. So, civilization wasn't a gentle, natural event. It was forged in the fires of competition, sacrifice, and ambition. It was a grand, dangerous experiment. The story of civilization is a story of how we built societies through cooperation, but also how we shaped them through conflict. It's about our incredible capacity for innovation and our deep-seated drive for power. The monuments we admire and the cities we study aren't just symbols of progress. They are monuments to the millions of forgotten lives, the sacrifices made, and the freedoms lost to build the world we know today. Civilization wasn't simply born, it was built, fought for, and paid for, often at a tremendous cost. And understanding that true origin story helps us understand the world we live in right now. The first topic is the end of endless wandering. For hundreds of thousands of years, our story was one of constant motion. Picture this. Small bands of humans, our ancestors, trekking across vast, untamed landscapes. We were hunter-gatherers, and our lives were a perpetual journey. We followed the great herds of mammoth and bison. We moved with these seasons, chasing the ripening of berries and the sprouting of edible roots. Our world was dictated by the rhythm of nature, and our survival depended on our ability to keep moving. This nomadic life was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it was the ultimate freedom. No single place owned us. The entire world was our home. If resources dwindled, we moved on. If a climate turned harsh, we sought a better one. This mobility was our greatest strength, our core survival strategy. But imagine the sheer exhaustion. Every day was a struggle for calories. Life was precarious, lived on the edge, with no real certainty about where the next meal would come from. There were no pantries, no savings accounts, just the skills you possessed and the strength in your legs. It was a life of incredible resilience, but also one of profound instability. Every new day was a reset. Then, something shifted. About 12,000 years ago, the world itself began to change. The last great ice age was breathing its final, frigid sighs. As the massive glaciers retreated, they carved out new landscapes, and, most importantly, the global climate began to stabilize. It became warmer, wetter, and more predictable. This wasn't just a minor weather update. It was a fundamental reshaping of the planet, and it set the stage for the single biggest revolution in human history. In certain lucky corners of the world, like the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East, this new climate created a paradise. Wild grasses, the ancestors of our modern wheat and barley, began to grow in dense, sprawling fields. Herds of wild goats, sheep, and cattle, animals that were naturally sociable and manageable, thrived in these new, lush environments. For the first time, our ancestors found themselves in places where food wasn't just a fleeting opportunity you had to chase, but an abundant, reliable resource that was all around them. They didn't have to wander for miles to find a handful of berries or track a lone gazelle. They were surrounded by a buffet, and so they did something radical. They slowed down, they started to stay put for longer periods, harvesting the wild grains, learning their cycles. This was the critical moment of observation. They noticed that seeds dropped on the ground would sprout into new plants the next season. They realized that if they guarded a patch of land, they could ensure a harvest. It was a slow dawning realization. Instead of just taking what nature offered, maybe, just maybe, they could actively encourage it. This was the birth of farming. But let's be clear, it wasn't some eureka moment where someone woke up and decided to be a farmer. It was a messy, gradual, and incredibly risky experiment that unfolded over thousands of years. Early farming was brutally hard work. It meant clearing land, tilling soil with primitive tools, and battling weeds, pests, and unpredictable weather. For many early farmers, a single bad harvest could mean starvation. It's likely that for generations, people hedged their bets, continuing to hunt and gather while dabbling in a little bit of gardening on the side. They were testing the waters, weighing the back-breaking labor of agriculture against the uncertainty of the hunt. But slowly, painstakingly, the experiment began to pay off. We learned which seeds produced the best yields. We figured out the basics of irrigation, channeling water to our precious crops. We began to domesticate animals, not just for meat, but for milk, for wool, and for their power to pull plows. Each small innovation, each successful harvest, reinforced the idea that staying in one place could work. Year after year, in the same fields, crops could be grown, harvested, and stored. And that storage, that was the real game. The concept of a surplus was born. For the first time in our species' history, we had more food than we needed to eat right away. We could store grain in pits and granaries, a buffer against lean times. This surplus did something extraordinary. It bought us time. It broke the daily, relentless cycle of searching for food, when not every single person has to spend every waking moment finding their next meal. Society can diversify. Think about it. If you have a surplus of grain, someone needs to manage it. Someone needs to build stronger containers to store it. Someone needs to protect it. This is where new roles emerged. The builder could now specialize in creating permanent, sturdy homes instead of temporary shelters. The craftsman could focus on making better tools, pottery, and textiles. The leader, or the organizer, emerged to manage the surplus, plan for the future, and mediate disputes within the growing community. This is the true foundation of civilization. It wasn't grand monuments or powerful kings that came first. It was food security. It was the humble pot of stored grain that allowed for specialization, for innovation, and for the creation of complex societies. The first villages began to form clusters of permanent homes built around fields and granaries. People started to develop a deep connection to a specific piece of land, a place they called home. A sense of community, of shared destiny, began to grow stronger than ever before. But this new way of life came with a new set of problems. The end of wandering also meant the end of walking away from your troubles. When you live in a fixed community, you have to deal with your neighbors. And when land becomes the source of all wealth and survival, it becomes incredibly valuable. The concept of ownership was born. This land is ours, not yours. And with ownership, inevitably, came conflict. Disputes over territory, over water rights, over stolen grain, became the new threats to survival. The first walls built around the village were not just to keep wild animals out. They were to keep other people out. The stability we gained came at the cost of a new kind of tension. Society became more complex, but also more hierarchical. Some people controlled more land and resources than others, leading to social stratification and inequality for the first time. The journey from nomadic freedom to settled civilization was a trade-off. We traded the freedom of the open road for the security of a home. We exchanged the uncertainty of the hunt for the toil of the fields. This monumental shift set us on the path to the world we know today. With all of its incredible achievements and all of its inherent conflicts, it was the end of one human story and the beginning of another. The second topic is the birth of power and hierarchy. Have you ever wondered why our world is so full of bosses, leaders, and social ladders? Why isn't everyone just equal? It's a huge question, and the answer isn't about some grand, evil plan. It's a story that starts thousands of years ago, with a single game-changing decision: to stop wandering and settle down. Imagine our earliest ancestors, living in small, nomadic groups. Life was tough, but it was also surprisingly egalitarian. You hunted a mammoth, everyone ate. You found a berry patch, everyone shared. Survival depended on sticking together, on pure cooperation. There was no concept of a CEO or a king because there was nothing to hoard. Your only real possession was your ability to contribute to the group. Leadership existed, of course, but it was fluid. The best hunter led the hunt. The wisest elder guided the group to water. Power was earned and temporary, based on skill, not status. This was humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. But then, everything changed. We discovered agriculture. It sounds simple, but this was arguably the most disruptive technology in human history. For the first time, we could produce more food than we could eat in a day. We could create a surplus. This led to the first permanent settlements, the first villages. And with those villages came a whole new set of problems we'd never faced before. First, the food surplus. If you have a granary full of grain, someone has to protect it. Protect it from what? From hungry neighbors, from pests, and even from members of your own community who might want more than their share. Suddenly, you need guards. You need someone to manage the distribution. This manager, this guardian of the grain, holds a new kind of power. They control the community's lifeline. This is the first seed of bureaucracy and control. Then there's the land itself. In a nomadic life, land belongs to no one. But when you've spent a year clearing a field, planting seeds, and tending to your crops, that land becomes yours. It's valuable. What happens when your neighbor's herd tramples your wheat, or when another village decides they want your fertile riverbank? Disputes arise. And when they do, you need someone to mediate, to make a decision, to enforce a rule. You need a judge, a chief. This person's authority isn't just for a single hunt. It becomes permanent. They become the law. As villages grew into towns and towns into cities, these roles became more specialized and more entrenched. The person who managed the grain became a powerful administrator. The one who settled disputes became a ruler. The one who claimed to understand the rains and the seasons. The one who could speak to the gods to ensure a good harvest became a priest. And this is where a crucial shift happens. Power starts to justify itself. How do you convince thousands of people that you deserve to be in charge? You build a narrative. The rulers weren't just skilled organizers anymore. They were chosen by the gods. Their bloodline was special. Their right to rule divine. The priests weren't just wise observers of nature. They were intermediaries between the mortal and the divine worlds. Their rituals weren't just traditions. They were essential for the survival of the entire city. This created a powerful alliance between political and religious authority. Questioning the king became the same as questioning the gods themselves, a very dangerous thing to do. This new structure brought incredible benefits. It allowed for large-scale projects, irrigation canals that turned deserts green, massive walls that protected citizens from invaders, and monumental temples that gave people a shared sense of identity and purpose. Civilization, with its art, its writing, its science, was born from this organization. But it came at a cost. For the first time in human history, rigid social classes began to form. At the top, you had the king and the priests, living in comfort, their lives dedicated to ruling and ritual. Below them, a new class of warriors emerged to defend the city's wealth and expand its territory. Then came the artisans, the builders, and the merchants, the engine of the urban economy. And at the very bottom, forming the vast base of this social pyramid, were the farmers. They were the majority, the ones whose hard labor in the fields produced the surplus that made everything else possible, yet they often had the least power and the fewest rewards. This wasn't a system anyone voted for. It evolved organically, solution by solution, to the challenges of settled life. Order replaced the chaos of a hand-to-mouth existence, but in the process, the simple equality of the Hunter-Gatherer was lost. We traded a certain kind of freedom for a new kind of security. We built walls to keep enemies out, but those same walls also enclosed a new, internally divided society. Some people lived comfortably within those walls, while others spent their lives laboring to maintain them. The story of civilization isn't just a simple tale of progress from caves to cities. It's also the story of how we created systems. Systems that allowed us to achieve incredible things, but also systems that organize us into hierarchies of power and wealth. We solved the problem of survival, but in doing so, we created the new and enduring problem of inequality. The ghost of that ancient granary, and the question of who gets to control it, still haunts us to this day, shaping our politics, our economies, and our societies. This transition wasn't good or bad. It was simply what happened. It was a complex, messy, and deeply human process. Understanding this origin story is key to understanding the world we live in today. The same dynamics of resource control, authority, and social narrative are still at play, just on a much, much larger scale. So the next time you look at the structure of our world, remember that it's not a given. It's an inheritance, a system built layer by layer over thousands of years, all starting from the moment we decided to plant a seed and stay. The third topic is protection, fear, and expansion. Have you ever wondered why old cities always have walls? It's not just for decoration. It's a clue to a fundamental truth about how our societies grew. The story starts simply enough with a successful harvest. Imagine a small farming village finally producing enough grain to store for the winter. This surplus, the symbol of security, was a game. It meant people didn't have to live it meant stability. But that stability came with a brand new problem. It made them a target. That stored grain was like a magnet for raiders. That fertile land attracted jealous rivals. Suddenly, the very thing that brought prosperity also brought danger. So, what did they do? They built walls. Simple at first, maybe just wooden palisades or packed. But it was a start. This simple act of building a wall marks a pivotal moment in human history. It's the moment we collectively decided that what we've built is worth protecting. This need for protection kick-started a kind of arms race. Walls got higher and stronger, built from stone instead of wood. Weapons evolved. A simple sharpened stick became a spear, then a bronze sword, then an iron one. Tactics became more sophisticated. People realized that a disorganized mob couldn't defend against a determined attacker. They needed to organize. They needed training. And so, the first armies were formed. These weren't just farmers grabbing a pitchfork. They were dedicated soldiers, a new class of people whose job was to protect the community. And here's what a powerful and often dark emotion enters a story: fear. Fear became a primary engine of civilization. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? We like to think of progress as being driven by noble ideals, like curiosity or cooperation, and those things are important. Absolutely. But fear of being raided, fear of starvation, fear of being conquered, this was a powerful, relentless motivator. Communities that were good at defending themselves survived. The ones that weren't, they banisset, absorbed, or destroyed, becoming footnotes in history. Survival alone, however, wasn't enough. The most successful communities learned that the best defense is a good offense. This is where expansion comes in. Why wait for rivals to get strong enough to attack you? Why not take control of their resources first? The settlements that actively expanded their territory, conquering neighboring lands, and absorbing their people, grew stronger. More land meant more food. More people meant a larger army and more labor. This logic is brutal, but it's undeniable. This cycle of defense, fear, and expansion led directly to the birth of empires. A single, powerful city-state would begin to dominate its neighbors, creating a buffer zone of controlled territory. Then it would dominate the neighbors of its neighbors. Soon, you have a vast territory ruled from a central point. Think of Rome, Persia, or the Han Dynasty. They didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were the ultimate result of this long, often violent process. Civilization was no longer just about growing crops and living in one place. It became a game of power, of territory, and of influence on a massive scale. It's a great paradox. The very systems that were created to bring stability and protect people from chaos, armies, organized governantalso, became the tools of conquest and war. The same organized army that defended your city could be used to burn your neighbor's city to the ground. The same centralized leadership that ensured a steady food supply could also levy crushing taxes to fund endless military campaigns. Stability brought war, protection brought aggression, but let's not paint a completely bleak picture. This constant pressure, this struggle for dominance, had an unexpected side effect. It fueled innovation. To build bigger walls and more complex fortifications, you needed better engineering and architectural planning. To equip large armies, you needed more efficient mining and to manage a growing empire, you needed organized labor to build roads, aqueducts, and public buildings. And how do you keep track of it all? The trade, the taxes, the number of soldiers, the amount of grain in storage. You need to write it down. The demands of empire building pushed the development of writing from simple pictographs to complex administrative scripts. So, in a way, fear and conflict pushed human development forward, forcing us to become better planners, better builders, and better organizers. So when we look back at the grand story of civilization, it's not a peaceful, linear march of progress. It's a messy, complicated dance between our desire for safety and our ambition for more. It is a story where the farmer as plow and the soldier as sword are two sides of the same coin. The walls built to keep danger out also became the launching pads for armies marching out. It is a powerful reminder that the forces that build our world can also be the ones that tear it down. Protection and ambition, walking side by side, shaping the world we live in today. What do you think? Is conflict a necessary evil for progress? Or is there a better way? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. The fourth topic is writing and control. Have you ever wondered what the most powerful invention in human history is? Is it the wheel? Fire? Maybe the internet? Well, what if I told you it's something you use every single day, probably without even thinking about it? It's writing, and its story is far more dramatic and world-changing than you might imagine. Let's travel back in time, way back, before epic poems, before nobles, before even the alphabet as we know it. The very first use of writing wasn't for art or storytelling, it was for accounting. I know, it sounds a little boring, right? But stick with me. Ancient civilizations, like the Sumerians in Mesopotamia, started using simple marks on clay tablets for intensely practical reasons. They needed to keep track of things. How much grain was in the city's storage? Who paid their taxes? How many sheep were traded for a shipment of timber? This was an information revolution. For the first time, a thought, a fact, a number could exist outside of a human brain. It could be stored, checked, and verified. This simple act of recording transactions was the foundation of complex economies. It allowed trade to expand beyond small, face-to-face exchanges. You could now have agreements, debts, and contracts that were solid and undeniable. It was the birth of bureaucracy, and it was the glue that started holding large-scale societies together. But the real magic of writing goes so much deeper than just keeping the books. Think about this. Before writing, power was fleeting. A king's decree, a leader's wisdom, a society's laws, they only existed as long as someone was alive to remember and repeat them. Knowledge was fragile, passed down from person to person. A giant, centuries-long game of telephone where details were inevitably lost, twisted, or forgotten. History itself was just a collection of memories. With the invention of writing, all of that changed. Suddenly, power could be set in stone, literally. A ruler's laws could be inscribed on a pillar for all to see, and they would remain long after the ruler was gone. This created permanence, a continuity that was impossible before. Governments could become more stable, more organized, and more powerful. Laws weren't just what the current chief said they were. They were a written code that applied to everyone, creating a new kind of social order. And it wasn't just about laws and taxes. Writing allowed for the preservation of culture on an unprecedented scale. Myths, religious beliefs, and creation stories could be written down. This was a monumental shift. These stories were the core of a people's identity, and now they could be standardized, preserved, and spread with incredible accuracy. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Vedas in India, these foundational texts united millions of people under a shared cultural and spiritual umbrella. They gave civilizations a sense of shared history and destiny. Writing allowed a civilization to become it could look back at its own recorded past, learn from it, and build upon it. It created a collective memory that transcended individual lives and generations. However, this incredible power came with the dark side. The ability to write history also meant the ability to control it. Who gets to write the story? The victors, of course. Rulers and elites quickly understood that controlling the narrative was a potent form of power. They could commission histories that glorified their reigns, justified their wars, and legitimized their right to rule. Events could be reframed. Inconvenient facts could be omitted, and entire populations could be written out of the story. The official record became the accepted truth, regardless of what actually happened. What was remembered was what was written down. And what was forgotten? Well, that was everything that wasn't. The stories of the conquered, the voices of the powerless, the alternative perspectives de Banisiad, often without a trace. The history of civilization is therefore a tale of two parts: the story that was carefully recorded and preserved, and the vast, silent story of everything that was erased, ignored, or never written down in the first place. This dual nature of writing, as a tool for both liberation and control, has echoed throughout history. Think of the printing press. It democratized knowledge, allowing ideas like those of the Reformation and the Enlightenment to spread like wildfire, challenging the authority of kings and churches. But it also enabled propaganda on a mass scale. Fast forward to the digital age. The internet gives almost everyone the ability to publish their thoughts, to share their stories, and to access a world of information. It's an incredible tool for connection and learning, but at the same time, it's a battleground for misinformation and competing narratives. Algorithms shape what we see, and echo chambers can reinforce our biases, making it harder than ever to distinguish facts from fiction. The fundamental challenge remains the same as it was for the ancient Sumerians, just on a global, instantaneous scale. Who controls the information? Who writes the story? So the next time you write an email, send a text, or even just jot down a grocery list, take a moment to appreciate the incredible power you're holding. You are participating in a tradition that is thousands of years old, a tradition that built empires, defined cultures, and shaped the very reality we live in. Writing is not just a tool for communication. It's a tool for memory, for power, and for creating the world. The real story of civilization isn't just about the monuments we built or the battles we fought. It's about what we chose to remember, and just as importantly, what we chose to forget. The fifth topic is the price of progress. Have you ever stopped to think about what it truly means to be civilized? We often picture it as this grand, inevitable march forward, from caves to skyscrapers, from grunts to poetry. We celebrate civilization for the incredible gifts it brought us: stability, groundbreaking innovation, the breathtaking beauty of art and culture, and the vast libraries of accumulated knowledge that define our species. It's the story we tell ourselves, the one of linear, glorious progress. But is that the whole story? I think we need to look a bit closer into the shadows cast by those towering achievements. Think about the first cities. We imagined them as bustling hubs of creativity and opportunity. And they were. But they were also something else. They were breeding grounds for diseases that our nomadic ancestors never had to face in such concentration. As people crowded together, epidemics swept through populations, a grim new reality of settled life. The very walls that offered protection also trapped sickness within. And what about the people who built those cities? The epic structures we admire, the pyramids, the aqueducts, the great walls, they weren't built by magic. They were built on the backs of countless individuals, through harsh, often brutal labor systems. For many, civilization didn't mean freedom. It meant a new kind of bondage, a life of relentless toil from sunrise to sunset, all for the glory of a king or an empire. Social divisions, once fluid and minimal, became rigid hierarchies. You were born into your station, and for most, there was no climbing the ladder. A chasm opened up between the haves and the have-nots, a divide that has echoed through every civilization since. Let's talk about food. It seems counterintuitive, right? Agriculture should mean abundance. But for many early farmers, the shift from a varied hunter-gatherer diet to a reliance on a few staple crops like wheat or rice actually led to poorer nutrition. Their diet became less diverse, less rich in essential vitamins and minerals. Skeletons from early agricultural societies often show signs of malnutrition and stress that were less common in their foraging ancestors. Their lives became a cycle of planting and harvesting, a demanding physical grind that wore down their body. In fact, archaeological evidence suggests that in some of the earliest urban centers, life expectancy actually dropped compared to the nomadic times that came before. That's a shocking thought, isn't it? The very leap we consider our greatest advancement may have made life shorter and harder for the average person. Progress, it turns out, had a hefty price tag. And yet, civilization didn't collapse. It grew. It spread across the globe. Why? If life was so tough, why did we stick with it? This is where the story gets really fascinating. It's because we, as humans, are wired for something more than just survival. We crave security. We value structure. We yearn for a sense of identity, a feeling of belonging to something larger than ourselves. The city, the state, the empire, it gave people that. It offered a shared culture, a collective purpose, and a defense against the chaos of the outside world. Even if your personal life was one of struggle, you were part of a grand, enduring project. You were a Roman, an Egyptian, a Babylonian. That identity was powerful. So, the real story behind civilization isn't a simple, heroic tale of constant improvement. It's a deeply human journey, a story defined by we gained comfort and a degree of predictability, but we gave up the freedom and simplicity of a life more in tune with nature. We built magnificent cities, but we also built rigid hierarchies and inequalities. We created history, with all its art and science and philosophy, but we also created new forms of organized conflict and systemic struggle. This wasn't destiny. There was no cosmic force pushing us to build walls and plant fields. It was a series of choices made by our ancestors thousands of years ago. They chose the perceived security of the settlement over the freedom of the open plains. They chose the collective over the individual, and we are still living with the consequences of those choices today. Our modern world, with all its incredible technological wonders and all its profound social challenges, is a direct inheritance of that initial bargain. Every time we grapple with issues of inequality, environmental strain, or the stress of urban life, we are grappling with the price of progress that was set millennia ago. It's a complex, messy, and beautiful legacy. It's the story of us. Thanks so much for watching. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the human story. See you next time.